Have you ever wondered what happens when the bride overhears the forbidden truth, and her reaction shocks everyone? Imagine standing at the altar, realizing everything you believed in was a lie. This is a story of betrayal, courage, and a moment that changes everything. Stick around to see how she turns heartbreak into empowerment, and discover the lessons you can apply to your own life. Don't forget to subscribe for more shocking wedding stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The sun rose gently over the small town, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. The air felt light, almost as if it carried a promise, and the streets near the chapel buzzed with quiet excitement. Neighbors peeked through their windows, smiling as they watched the bridal car pull up, white ribbons swaying in the breeze. Inside, the bride sat still for a moment, her hands resting on her lap, soaking in the thought that this was the day she had been waiting for all her life. Every detail had been planned to perfection, down to the scent of fresh lilies filling the air. She took a deep breath, the kind you take before stepping into a new chapter, and whispered to herself, "This is it." In the bridal suite, soft music played from a corner speaker, mixing with the laughter of bridesmaids as they put on the finishing touches. The bride's reflection in the mirror almost surprised her, how the delicate lace hugged her shoulders, how the veil caught the morning light. It was the version of herself she had imagined since childhood, flipping through magazines and dreaming about her own, someday. The makeup artist gave her a final nod of approval, and she felt a surge of gratitude for how everything was falling perfectly into place. Outside, the venue came alive with movement. Guests in elegant attire found their seats, exchanging hugs and compliments, their voices blending into a low hum of anticipation. Children ran around in small circles, their laughter echoing across the garden. The groom, somewhere on the other side, was shaking hands, smiling for photographs, playing the role of the man everyone thought he was. No one suspected a thing, because in moments like these, people believe only in the beauty they can see. The flowers along the aisle swayed gently as a warm breeze drifted through. The fragrance was almost intoxicating, mingling with the smell of freshly cut grass. The bride's mother adjusted a row of chairs, glancing up every so often to make sure the photographer caught every moment. Relatives from far away had traveled just to be here, to witness what they thought would be a pure celebration of love. There was a feeling of unity, of shared joy, as if this wedding was not just for two people but for everyone in attendance. The bride, meanwhile, held onto her bouquet like it was a lifeline. Each petal seemed to carry a memory, how they met at that coffee shop, the first time he called her by a nickname, the day he proposed under a string of fairy lights. She replayed these memories like a cherished movie, unaware that another reel, one she had never seen before, was waiting to be played. Her heart was open, her guard was down, and her trust was absolute. As the morning stretched on, the energy inside the venue shifted from preparation to expectation. The harpist began tuning her strings, filling the room with delicate notes that made even the busiest hands pause. The air seemed to hum with the rhythm of footsteps, the soft rustle of dresses, the clink of champagne glasses being set aside. For the bride, every sound felt like a gentle reminder that the moment she had been counting down to was almost here. Her father peeked in, his eyes watering just a little, though he tried to hide it with a joke about not tripping while walking her down the aisle. She laughed, not realizing how those words would carry a different meaning soon enough. Parents often believe that if their children choose love, they'll be safe from pain. He believed that too. By now, the bride could hear faint applause from outside, guests greeting familiar faces, sharing stories, enjoying the atmosphere. In the midst of it all, she felt the slow, steady beat of her heart, matching the tempo of her excitement. Little did she know, this steady rhythm was about to be interrupted in a way she could never have imagined. She took one final look in the mirror before stepping out for a quick moment to clear her head. Her gown brushed softly against the floor as she moved toward the hallway. It was just supposed to be a breath of fresh air before the ceremony began. But the air outside held something else, something she wasn't ready to hear. As she stepped outside for a breath of fresh air, the garden seemed quieter than before, almost holding its breath. The sunlight touched the edges of the flower beds, but in the corner, shadows lingered where the morning didn't reach. She wandered toward them without really thinking, just wanting a moment to collect her thoughts. That's when she heard it, a low murmur, carried by the wind but deliberate, like words being carefully chosen and weighed. Her first instinct was to ignore it, to chalk it up to excitement, but curiosity pricked at her. The voices were faint at first, almost blending with the soft hum of guests arriving. But then a tone cut through, urgent, almost panicked, one she recognized immediately. It was unmistakably him. Her stomach twisted, a strange tension tightening her chest. She froze behind a small hedge, the world around her blurring as she strained to listen. Every syllable landed like a pebble tossed into still water, sending ripples she couldn't contain. She realized she was eavesdropping, yet the compulsion to hear more was stronger than caution. People often underestimate the power of overhearing, how it can change your perspective in an instant. Even a single phrase, a single confession, can rewrite everything you believed. Her hands gripped the edge of the hedge, fingers turning white, as the words unfolded, words she never imagined she would hear, spoken in the calm before the storm. The urgency in his voice was clear, mixed with a sense of fear that she had never associated with him. She had always seen him confident, charming, unshakable in public, but this was raw, human, flawed. It was a side he never showed anyone, a side meant to remain hidden. And yet, here it was, laid bare by his own words, for her eyes and ears alone to stumble upon. Her heart raced as she tried to piece together what she had heard. The voices weren't shouting, they weren't dramatic, they were intimate, secretive, almost conspiratorial. She realized that this moment, this very instance, was something she wasn't meant to witness. It was a tiny crack in the perfect illusion she had been living under, and now she was seeing beyond the carefully painted surface. She felt a twinge of fear mixed with disbelief. Could it really be true? Was she imagining it? The mind has a way of twisting reality when emotions surge, but the familiarity of his tone confirmed it. This was real, painfully real. She leaned a little closer, compelled to gather the whole story, even as a small voice inside her warned against it. That voice whispered about betrayal, doubt, and choices that could not be undone. The murmur of the garden around her seemed to fade, replaced by the weight of what she was hearing. Every word was a revelation, a puzzle piece she didn't want to accept but couldn't ignore. Her breathing quickened, her mind spinning through all the what-ifs and how-could-he moments that now seemed inevitable. It was the kind of moment that lodges itself in memory, the kind you replay again and again in your head. She tried to retreat, to step away from the hedge, but curiosity anchored her feet. The voices continued, revealing layers she hadn't expected, unraveling the narrative she had built around love, trust, and happiness. There was something hypnotic about the truth being whispered, a pull she couldn't resist, even as it tightened a knot of fear and anticipation in her stomach. And in that brief, stolen moment, she understood that nothing would ever be the same again. The day meant for love, for celebration, was now teetering on the edge of something unrecognizable. Her next steps would carry the weight of knowledge no one else had, and the choices she made in the following minutes could change everything. She stood there, hidden behind the hedge, feeling the air thicken with every word she overheard. Each phrase seemed to strike a chord deep inside her, reverberating in a way that made her chest tighten. It wasn't just the content, it was the tone, the hesitation, the raw honesty in his voice. People rarely realize how words can carry more weight than actions, how a single confession can shift your entire understanding of someone. She clutched the bouquet in her hands, the flowers suddenly feeling heavier, like a symbol of fragile trust. Her mind raced as she replayed what she had just heard. Every sentence seemed carefully chosen, but the truth behind them hit harder than any mistake could. She could feel the impact on her heart, the slow burn of realization that the man she had trusted completely had hidden layers she never imagined. It's remarkable how a few words, spoken softly, can unravel years of belief and affection. Her grip on the bouquet tightened, and she felt a quiet tremor in her hands, the kind that comes when you realize life is about to change. She thought about all the little moments they had shared, trying to reconcile them with this revelation. How every laugh, every promise, every look of affection now seemed tinged with a hidden agenda. The mind has a way of replaying memories through the lens of new information, twisting what was once innocent into something unrecognizable. She remembered their first date, his gentle words, the way he held her hand. Suddenly, each moment carried a shadow she couldn't ignore. Her pulse quickened, not from fear alone, but from the dizzying awareness of being the only one who knew. The weight of the secret pressed on her chest, making it hard to breathe. It's strange how knowledge can isolate you, even when surrounded by people celebrating joy. She realized that from this point forward, she would walk a different path, one where she couldn't simply trust appearances. The garden, once a sanctuary, now felt like the stage of a revelation she hadn't chosen to witness. She remembered advice her grandmother had once given her about life's unexpected moments. When you hear something that shakes you, don't react immediately. Feel it, understand it, then decide. She took a steadying breath, trying to embody that wisdom, reminding herself that her next move would define everything. Yet, despite the calm she tried to summon, every word he spoke lingered, looping in her mind, demanding attention and reflection. Her thoughts drifted to the idea of hidden motives, the things people don't reveal even when you think you know them completely. How often do we think we see the full picture, only to discover a hidden layer, a concealed truth that changes everything? The mind naturally seeks explanations, stories to make sense of chaos, but sometimes the truth doesn't offer comfort, it offers clarity that demands action. And in that clarity, she understood that the coming moments would test her in ways she hadn't imagined. She could almost hear the distant laughter of the guests, oblivious to the unfolding storm just steps away. How ironic that life's most dramatic moments often occur in plain sight, unnoticed by the world, while only one person carries the burden of truth. Her gaze shifted to the path leading back inside, knowing that soon, she would have to confront the moment of decision, the crossroads where inaction was no longer an option. Her heart pounded as she weighed possibilities. Could she continue as if nothing had happened, pretending the morning's perfection was intact? Or should she act, acknowledging the weight of his words and letting the truth guide her? Every choice carried consequences, and the gravity of them settled like stones in her chest. Yet, a strange resolve began to build, a quiet determination that she would not let deception dictate her day. And in that silent, tense moment behind the hedge, she realized that her life had just shifted on its axis. The weight of what she had heard would follow her, shaping every step toward the altar, every smile she forced, and every decision she made in the minutes ahead. The garden, the flowers, the sunlight, all seemed charged with meaning now, a prelude to the choices she would soon face. The words she had overheard settled in her mind like heavy stones, each one pressing harder than the last. It was a truth she had never imagined, something so hidden that it felt impossible to reconcile with the man she thought she knew. The wedding, the smiles, the dreams, they suddenly seemed like fragile illusions, easily shattered by a single confession. Her stomach churned, and a cold shiver ran down her spine. It was the kind of truth that doesn't just surprise you, it redefines everything you thought was safe and familiar. She thought about the countless hours spent planning this day, the flowers, the music, the laughter, all meant to celebrate a love she now questioned. How can something so meticulously built rest on such uncertain ground? The mind struggles with paradoxes like this, trying to reconcile joy with betrayal. Her eyes drifted to the white gown she wore, each lace detail now feeling like a fragile shield she had placed over herself. The contrast between appearance and reality struck her with a quiet, undeniable force. She remembered moments that now seemed like lies disguised as tenderness, late-night conversations, whispered promises, gentle touches. Everything was filtered through the lens of this new revelation, each memory carrying a subtle sting. It's remarkable how quickly perception changes when a hidden motive is revealed. What once seemed natural now felt orchestrated, and the realization made her chest tighten, reminding her of the power a single secret can hold. Her thoughts turned to the idea of trust and how fragile it truly is. Trust isn't built in grand gestures but in consistency, in the quiet moments where intentions reveal themselves. And here, in this quiet garden, she understood how easily trust can be undermined by something unseen, something whispered in shadows. It was as if a curtain had been lifted, revealing a part of life she hadn't been prepared to see. She tried to anchor herself in logic, replaying what she had heard over and over, dissecting every word. Why would he do this? What did it mean for the vow she was about to take? The questions multiplied, circling her thoughts like restless birds. Yet beneath the turmoil, a clarity began to form, a quiet, fierce understanding that she could no longer remain passive. Knowledge had arrived, and with it, the responsibility to act in a way that honored herself. A pang of sorrow swept through her. She had believed in a narrative of love, of mutual devotion, of shared dreams, and suddenly that story seemed fragile, almost fictional. Life has a way of presenting truths when you least expect them, often when you are most vulnerable. And there she was, standing on the threshold of a decision, the weight of what she had learned pressing against her in every heartbeat. It was a truth she was never meant to know, yet now she carried it fully, whether she wanted to or not. Her gaze wandered across the venue, the guests, the carefully arranged details. Everything seemed beautiful, untouched, unaware of the revelation that had silently infiltrated this day. It was a strange contrast, this world of celebration beside her private upheaval. The innocence of the moment, the smiles of those she loved, clashed violently with the knowledge she held. She realized how isolating truth could be, even in the midst of joy. She thought about choices, about the kind that define the trajectory of a life in mere minutes. Would she confront him now, stay silent, or craft a response that revealed her awareness without chaos? Every scenario played in her mind like a scene in a film, each more vivid than the last. The tension of potential action pulsed through her veins, making her acutely aware of how fast moments could transform into lifelong consequences. And as she held on to the secret, she felt the weight of inevitability pressing down. The day meant for love had shifted subtly but irreversibly, and the choices she made next would ripple outward, touching everyone in attendance. The truth she was never supposed to know had arrived, and with it, a silent promise that nothing would remain the same. She returned to the bridal suite, each step echoing softly in the empty hallway, carrying a tension no one could see. Her reflection in the mirror greeted her with a radiant smile, flawless hair, sparkling eyes, but behind it, a storm raged. It's strange how appearances can hold so much power, how a simple curve of the lips can mask a heart on fire. People trust what they see, rarely questioning the calm on the surface, and she knew how to use that to her advantage. The bridesmaids chattered around her, unaware of the secret she carried. Their voices felt distant, almost like background music in a scene that belonged only to her. She laughed when prompted, nodded when necessary, each motion precise, practiced, a performance honed by instinct. It was exhausting, yet liberating, to know she could control the face she presented, while keeping the truth securely tucked away. The storm inside her hummed quietly, a force contained but not diminished. Every glance toward the window reminded her of the outside world, the garden where whispers had revealed everything, the path to the altar where decisions awaited. Her mind danced between the memories she cherished and the betrayal she had just uncovered. It's remarkable how quickly the human heart can hold both joy and hurt in the same chamber, how one can appear serene while another part flares with fire. Each breath she took was measured, deliberate, a silent assertion of control. She thought of her options, weighing them carefully as if they were delicate scales. The storm was real, but she could navigate it. She could maintain composure, act strategically, or let emotion take the reins. Life often presents crossroads like this, moments that reveal our true character. Her choice, though personal, would ripple outward, affecting not only her but everyone around her. The calm she portrayed was a shield, a statement that she was still present, still aware, still unbroken. The mirror reflected a bride ready for her day, yet she could feel the tension beneath every smile. It's fascinating how humans adapt, how we can display confidence while our minds whirl in quiet chaos. She recalled stories she had read about people facing betrayal yet maintaining dignity, remembering advice from mentors: you control the narrative by controlling yourself first. She embodied that wisdom now, letting her presence speak before any words could escape. Even as the clock ticked closer to the ceremony, she felt a subtle rhythm in her chest, a heartbeat synchronized with the storm she carried. It was as though the day itself had conspired to hold its breath, waiting for her to decide when, how, and if the truth would surface. She imagined the faces of guests who had no idea, wondering what expressions would follow when the veil lifted not just on her gown, but on the reality she now held. Her smile became a mask not of deceit, but of mastery. There's a difference between hiding and strategizing, she understood that now. Every gesture, every glance, every nod was intentional, a way to move through the room while preserving her own power. The world would see beauty and grace, yet beneath that facade, she was alive with purpose, aware of the storm she could unleash at the perfect moment. She considered how people often underestimate quiet strength, mistaking calm for weakness. She knew that storming visibly might feel good, but it would not give her the clarity and control she needed. She allowed herself to breathe, to feel the tension pulse beneath the surface, and to acknowledge the quiet fury that gave her perspective. The smile she wore was not surrender, it was preparation, a calm before the crescendo that the day would demand. And as she adjusted her veil one last time, she sensed the inevitable moment approaching, the steps that would take her from this private chaos into the public stage. The storm within remained, contained for now, yet poised to make its mark. Every smile, every careful movement, was a thread weaving her story, setting the stage for what was about to unfold in ways no one could anticipate. Every step toward the altar felt heavier than the last, each click of her heels on the marble echoing in her chest like a drumbeat of anticipation. The air smelled of roses and fresh-cut grass, yet it carried a tension that nothing in the morning had hinted at. Her mind raced, spinning through everything she had just discovered, the words that lingered in her ears like ghosts. The guests were smiling, the photographers adjusting angles, but she felt suspended in a world all her own, teetering between heartbreak and resolve. Her palms were slightly clammy, but she held the bouquet firmly, letting the flowers anchor her in the present. Each breath was measured, as if she could slow time by focusing on the rhythm of inhale and exhale. She remembered advice from a close friend about staying grounded in moments of chaos: find something tangible to hold on to, and let your mind settle there. The bouquet became that anchor, a reminder that despite the storm, she could control her next moves. She glanced at the groom from a distance, rehearsing his smile for the crowd, unaware that she knew the truth. He appeared calm, collected, charming in the way that had first drawn her to him, and yet she saw past it now. Her thoughts flickered between disbelief and clarity, between the love she once felt and the justice she now sought. There was a strange empowerment in knowing the hidden layers, in realizing that she held the narrative in her hands. Her heartbeat quickened as the officiant began the opening remarks, calling attention to the assembly. The sound of laughter, the soft rustle of dresses, and the crisp notes of a violin filled the air, blending with the tension in her mind. Every eye in the room was focused forward, yet she was acutely aware of the collision of her inner world with the external perfection. The juxtaposition made each moment sharper, more electric, as if the universe itself had paused for her decision. She considered her options in the fleeting seconds before she would stand at the altar. Could she simply follow through, smile, and nod, pretending she had not overheard the confession? Or should she take control, letting the truth shine in a way that demanded attention? Each scenario played vividly in her mind, highlighting the weight of choice and the irreversible consequences of action, or inaction. The minutes seemed to stretch, elongating in suspense. Her focus sharpened as she adjusted the hem of her dress, a small, almost imperceptible movement that centered her. She thought about how life often presents moments that demand courage, where hesitation can feel like surrender. The knowledge she carried was a weapon and a responsibility, both powerful and delicate. She drew on past experiences, recalling how she had faced challenges before with grace, learning that timing and composure could turn chaos into strategy. The music swelled slightly, signaling that the moment of arrival was imminent. She felt the first brush of air as guests shifted, the subtle vibrations of movement beneath her feet. Every sound seemed amplified, every heartbeat synchronized with her tension. She imagined the gasp she might elicit, the ripple effect of revelation, and felt a shiver of anticipation mixed with fear. The choice was hers to make, yet the gravity of it pressed like invisible hands on her shoulders. Her eyes caught her reflection in a small glass panel near the entrance. The same smile from earlier still graced her lips, yet now it carried layers of knowledge, control, and quiet defiance. She realized that this smile had become a mask, a shield, and a promise all at once. It whispered to the world that she was composed, yet internally, she was ready to shift the entire narrative in a single, decisive act. And as she took the final steps down the aisle, her mind raced with the tension of possibilities, the weight of truth, and the resolve to act. The altar loomed ahead, the guests held in anticipation, and every fiber of her being was alive with awareness. She knew the next moment would change everything, and that the storm she had contained would soon find its voice. As she reached the altar, a hush seemed to descend over the guests, as if the universe sensed the tension building in her chest. The sunlight reflected off her gown, making her appear ethereal, almost untouchable, yet inside, every nerve was alive with purpose. She held the bouquet tightly, not as a symbol of innocence, but as a marker of control, a silent assertion that she knew the truth. Each breath was deliberate, each step measured, carrying the weight of what she was about to do. Her eyes met his across the aisle, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of uncertainty, a crack in the confident facade he wore so easily. The knowledge of what she had overheard gave her clarity, sharpening her focus. She realized that words had power, but timing gave them impact. Now, standing in front of everyone, she could choose when and how to reveal the truth, making the moment unforgettable. The officiant began the ceremonial introduction, and she felt a thrill run through her, a mix of fear and anticipation. People leaned forward slightly, smiles bright, unaware that the narrative they expected was about to twist. The silence became electric, charged with the possibility of revelation. She could almost hear her heartbeat echo in the chapel, each thump a drum of destiny calling her to act. She raised the microphone with a calm that belied the storm within, the kind of composure that comes from knowing you hold the truth. Her voice trembled only slightly, a human touch that made everyone lean in, hungry for the story she was about to unfold. Each word she spoke carried precision, the cadence designed to ensure the audience felt the weight of her revelation. The power of silence had primed them, and now her words would land with unmistakable force. Gasps rose softly at first, then louder, as the crowd processed what she revealed. Faces shifted, expressions melting from joy to disbelief, a ripple effect spreading through the room. He tried to respond, to salvage the moment, but the words had already found their mark. The truth, carefully chosen and delivered, demanded acknowledgement, and no amount of charm could erase it. She had transformed from a passive participant to the author of the narrative. She felt a strange liberation as she continued, each phrase a step toward reclaiming her agency. It was not vengeance she sought, but clarity and justice. The room seemed to lean in collectively, witnesses to a moment that transcended a wedding, touching on human emotion, integrity, and courage. The beauty of the moment was in its honesty, in the quiet strength of someone refusing to be deceived. Her gaze swept the room, taking in shocked relatives, wide-eyed friends, and the once confident groom, now pale and speechless. Every detail mattered, the folding of hands, the way whispers traveled across the audience, the subtle nods of understanding from those who sensed what had been hidden. She realized that revelation is rarely violent, it's precise, intentional, and deeply transformative. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. Her smile, now freed from pretense, radiated strength, a symbol of triumph not over another, but over circumstance. Every eye remained fixed on her, every ear attuned to her words, every heart briefly intertwined with her story. It was a moment that would linger in memory, the kind that becomes legend in small communities, whispered about for years. And as she lowered the microphone, a quiet energy settled over the room. She hadn't just revealed a secret, she had shifted the balance, taken control of her destiny, and planted a seed of reflection in everyone present. The altar, once a stage for expectation, had become the site of reckoning, and she was at the center, fully awake, fully aware, ready for what came next. The room erupted in a symphony of gasps, murmurs, and stunned silence, each reaction a ripple of disbelief cascading through the crowd. People turned to one another, eyes wide, mouths slightly open, struggling to process what had just been revealed. It was a quiet chaos, one that didn't need shouting to convey its intensity. The atmosphere shifted from celebration to tension, a delicate, electric energy that filled every corner of the venue. Guests exchanged glances, whispering hurriedly, voices low but urgent. Some clutched at their partner's hands, others held their breath, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile sense of control. She noticed the subtle movements, the way bodies leaned in toward each other for reassurance, the slight stammers as reality collided with expectation. Every person was engaged, their curiosity piqued, their empathy awakened by the honesty that had shattered their assumptions. He stood frozen, a stark contrast to the confident demeanor he had carried all morning. Color drained from his face, eyes flicking nervously between her and the crowd, searching for an escape that didn't exist. It was a profound moment of vulnerability, one he had never anticipated experiencing in public. The weight of exposure settled heavily on him, and she recognized that truth has a unique way of dismantling facades, leaving only raw humanity. Some guests whispered to each other, sharing fragments of what they had heard, trying to piece together the puzzle. The ripples of revelation spread quickly, each listener filling in gaps, imagining scenarios, and constructing their own understanding of the secret. It was remarkable to witness, the way information travels, how collective curiosity can heighten the intensity of a moment. The bride observed quietly, aware of the power her words now wielded. Children, oblivious to the full significance, tugged at their parents' hands, their innocent energy contrasting with the emotional storm around them. Even the musicians paused, bows suspended over strings, caught in the tension that now defined the room. Every movement seemed slower, more deliberate, as though the world had collectively inhaled, holding itself suspended in anticipation. She felt the pulse of the crowd as if it were her own heartbeat magnified. She noticed the subtle body language, the involuntary gestures of people processing shock, raised eyebrows, pursed lips, hands hovering near faces. It reminded her how truth resonates physically as much as mentally. The revelation wasn't just heard, it was felt, coursing through every witness like an electric current. The realization dawned that moments like these shape perception, memory, and relationships in ways that linger long after the event ends. Her gaze returned to him, watching as the confident groom struggled to regain composure. Every micro-expression revealed his internal struggle, the clash of pride, fear, and disbelief playing openly across his face. She felt neither malice nor satisfaction, only a calm awareness that she had restored balance in her own narrative. The shockwave wasn't just for him, it was a revelation for everyone, a lesson in honesty and courage that no one would forget. Even the wedding staff felt the shift, subtle changes in posture and pace betraying their awareness of the tension. Plates were set more carefully, chairs adjusted quietly, and the hum of background activity carried a new weight. It was remarkable how the environment itself seemed to reflect the emotional current, as if the room had become a living participant in the unfolding story. Each small gesture contributed to the collective understanding of what had just occurred. And as the initial wave of shock began to settle, a new energy emerged, one of curiosity, reflection, and anticipation. Conversations would continue, thoughts would swirl, and relationships would shift, but one thing was undeniable: the bride's revelation had left an indelible mark. The room, once a simple setting for celebration, had transformed into a space where truth had taken center stage, and she remained the quiet force behind it all. She turned from the altar with measured steps, each one echoing a quiet declaration of independence. The weight of the secret she carried had been released, and now she walked not with hesitation, but with purpose. Guests watched, some in disbelief, others in admiration, sensing the shift in energy. It was not anger that propelled her forward, but a profound clarity, a decision to honor herself above all else. Each step was a reminder that she had chosen integrity over illusion. Her heels clicked softly against the floor, marking a rhythm that matched the steady beat of her heart. Every movement carried intention, a subtle assertion of power reclaimed. She felt the curious gazes of everyone following her, yet she did not falter. The world seemed to bend slightly around her resolve, acknowledging that this was more than an exit, it was a statement. Life had handed her a revelation, and she responded not with revenge, but with grace. Passing the stunned groom, she held his gaze briefly, letting him understand that his deception had consequences beyond what he imagined. There was no need for words, the silence spoke volumes. She had risen above the chaos, claiming her narrative and refusing to let his choices define her happiness. It was a masterclass in composure, a lesson in the quiet, undeniable power of self-respect. The guests murmured among themselves, whispers trailing behind her like a gentle wind carrying her strength. Friends and family watched as she moved with dignity, realizing that courage doesn't always roar, it can walk softly, leaving a trail of impact. Every eye seemed to register her autonomy, the fact that she had chosen herself over comfort, truth over ceremony. In that moment, she became a symbol of empowerment, not just for herself, but for everyone witnessing. She reached the edge of the garden, sunlight brushing her shoulders, carrying warmth that mirrored the calm building inside her. For the first time since the morning began, she felt entirely present, unburdened by expectation or deception. The world outside waited, open and unjudging, as if welcoming her next chapter. She understood that leaving wasn't an ending, it was the beginning of a story she would write on her own terms, guided by wisdom gained through pain. Her thoughts wandered briefly to the life she had imagined, the fairy tale version now shattered. Yet in its place, a new narrative emerged, one grounded in honesty and self-awareness. She considered the lessons embedded in betrayal, the value of discernment, and the quiet satisfaction of choosing herself. Life often presents crossroads like this, moments where walking away is not defeat, but triumph over manipulation and falsehood. Each step carried a subtle defiance, a message that she would no longer be constrained by someone else's agenda. The flowers she left behind at the altar were no longer a symbol of union, they were a silent witness to her awakening. She realized that sometimes the greatest victories are not witnessed by the world but felt deeply within. Her path was hers alone, a journey shaped by courage, clarity, and unwavering self-respect. Passing the threshold into the world beyond the wedding, she drew in a deep, liberating breath. The air seemed fresher, the light brighter, and every sound sharper. Life had offered her a choice, and she had stepped forward with intention, leaving behind deception and embracing freedom. It was a walk that carried wisdom, one she would remember whenever faced with uncertainty in the future. And as she disappeared from the crowd's view, a sense of calm settled over her, a quiet victory etched into her memory. She had turned a moment of betrayal into empowerment, transforming shock and heartbreak into strength and clarity. Every step forward reinforced the lesson that self-respect and truth always outweigh appearances, and that walking away can be the most courageous act of all. She stepped into a world that felt simultaneously unfamiliar and full of possibility. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of freedom, of choices made without compromise. Every breath reminded her that life was no longer dictated by someone else's agenda. She felt the thrill of autonomy, the quiet power of walking into the unknown with confidence. There was no regret in her heart, only lessons, and the knowledge that she had reclaimed her story. Her thoughts drifted to the future, to opportunities and paths she had never allowed herself to explore. Dreams that once seemed distant now glimmered with attainable promise. She imagined mornings filled with purpose, afternoons rich with discovery, and evenings reflecting on her own growth. Each vision reinforced the idea that endings are rarely final, they are gateways to reinvention and transformation, waiting for courage to step through. She reflected on the strength it took to face betrayal, the courage to act with dignity, and the wisdom gained in silence. The experience had left a mark, yet it was not a scar, it was a roadmap. Life had offered her a choice: dwell in heartbreak or forge a new chapter built on self-respect. She had chosen the latter, and the clarity it brought illuminated paths that had been hidden behind fear and expectation. The breeze whispered through the trees, carrying a sense of renewal and possibility. She smiled genuinely this time, a smile unburdened by deception or obligation. It was the first of many authentic moments, a symbol of the inner peace that comes from knowing you acted in alignment with your truth. She realized that freedom was not just leaving, it was embracing life with awareness, courage, and integrity. She thought of the relationships she would nurture moving forward, those based on honesty and mutual respect. It became clear that boundaries were essential, that discernment was a gift, and that true connection arises when both people show up fully. She envisioned friendships and partnerships grounded in trust, without shadows of manipulation or hidden motives. The foundation of her next chapter would be solid, unwavering, and self-defined. Her steps became lighter, a reflection of the internal shift she had undergone. Life no longer felt like a performance, it felt like participation, active and engaged. Every choice she made now carried intention, guided by experience and insight. She realized that empowerment isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering oneself, making decisions that honor your values, and embracing the unknown with confidence. She paused briefly to take in the scenery, the garden, the sunlight, the laughter from the edges of the venue, and the world beyond. Everything felt amplified, vivid, and rich with possibility. She recognized that endings, no matter how painful, often conceal new beginnings brimming with opportunity. Her journey had transformed her, and with it, her perspective, her resilience, and her capacity for joy. A sense of gratitude rose within her, not for the betrayal, but for the lessons it provided. She had learned the importance of awareness, the strength found in stillness, and the power of decisive action. The past would remain a reference point, not a tether, guiding her with wisdom rather than constraining her with regret. She understood that life's greatest gifts often arrive disguised as challenges, demanding courage to unveil their value. And as she moved forward, the horizon stretched endlessly before her, a canvas waiting for choices crafted with intention, self-respect, and vision. The day that began with deception had transformed into a moment of empowerment, an awakening to what was possible when one refuses to be defined by others. Each step forward carried freedom, resilience, and a quiet but unshakable confidence that the best chapters were yet to come. In the end, the bride's courage reminds us that truth and self-respect are more powerful than any illusion. Standing up for yourself, even in the most unexpected moments, can change your life forever. If this story inspired you, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. There are more emotional wedding stories waiting that will shock, inspire, and teach valuable lessons.